And speaking of antenna, you can probably see via your view screen that we have the first of two very special guests on our show tonight. We'd like to give a very warm, strange new pod welcome to Noah Averbach-Katz, who played Ryn this past season on Star Trek Discovery.
Hello,
Hey,
hello,
Noah.
everybody. Thank you all for having me here. That was a very punishing opening. Very happy about that.
Sometimes you just gotta Ryn and
Game
bear it.
on.
We
Ryn
have
and
to
bear
deal
it.
with this week in, week out, and it's it doesn't get old unless it does.
I mean, I don't struggle.
My title gets longer every week. I like it.
Yeah, I was particularly proud of number one customer Quirks or 10 rotations running.
That's
Because I
definitely
think
true.
it's accurate.
You're
So
like the Daenerys
Only
of the
10.
I'm the drunk one.
Well, I like to imagine that if I come back to Star Trek, it will be as a Dabo girl. So hopefully we'll have some
Nice.
interaction with Quarks.
I
Excellent.
will
Next
support
morn.
that.
Drink.
I will sign any petition to make that happen. Only if you Dabo, though.
Yeah, okay. Well, we'll see. We'll see if what it's like in the future. I do have a video of me on my phone somewhere doing the Naruto run in full makeup and costume. I thought
I
that would
love
be
it.
funny and doing a lot of dabbing, and I haven't put it on the internet because I feel
You
like
need to.
it's
No.
almost too embarrassing. Like
We've all
me,
Naruto run.
It's true.
Yeah, I think it's a whole video of me and David Ajala, and like
Oh my
he
god.
starts to do a freestyle rap, and then I start to dab, and then I make him hold the phone while I do a Naruto run. I think it was like the second
That's
day we had
amazing.
met, so it wasn't a great look for me. So one of the few things on my phone that isn't on the internet of me in costume.
You gotta let yourself out right
It's
away. That
amazing.
way you don't have to do that whole like, oh, I have to be on my best behavior. Everyone knows who you are, and you can just let it fly.
Exactly.
One of the people watching on our Twitch right now, Spotted Giraffe, said, "Oh, that's a real man right there."
Yeah. That's how you know.
Yeah.
We know a guy, and
Exactly.
he's a real Naruto. So Noah, not sure how familiar you are with the format of our show. Hopefully you haven't listened, but maybe you have. I apologize if you have. But every episode, we like to kick things off with our strange new loop.
God,
That
that
was
sound
so jarring.
every week.
Usually it's fine, but that was whew. And since you yourself are a Trekkie, we thought it would be fun for you to take part if you're interested. If not, you can definitely hide.
Yeah, no, I'll probably do both. I'll answer and then whatever I don't even know what the question
Go into the
is,
next
but-
room.
You can Naruto run
Exactly.
away, honestly.
Exactly, yeah.
He's like village, hidden leaf village, like I'm gone. So taking a page out of the Will Riker playbook, I almost said handbook. If you could run a holodeck program and watch the events unfold from any Trek episode, which would it be, and would you also pose as a character in that episode? You don't have to go first, mind you. Anybody can go.
Let me hold on. All right. So
You
the
gotta think
question.
sometimes.
So you get to watch the episode unfold, and then you get to step in
Yeah,
if you'd
you
like
choose.
to.
It's
Which
like
is
when
a-
Will Riker was watching.
Yes, the
you
end
know,
of the end of
bad ending
Enterprise.
of
Yes,
Well, he knows.
my
He knows.
No one
yeah, you know,
knows.
I think what's the episode where Q becomes human? Is that Q who?
I'd call it
No,
human.
no.
Right? No, not-
Q-less?
Q Hugh was the second one. That was when he introduced them to the Borg.
Right. No, not that one. The one where he becomes human.
Yeah.
What's that called?
that's Q-less, right?
Q-less. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think I would like to do that, and I could see John Delancey naked, which I feel like would be worth the price of admission
That's
alone.
amazing.
And yeah, I think it would be fun to step in and just harass Q for a little while he's a human.
Yeah.
That
I
sounds
don't know
like
if
a
anyone
good
can top
answer.
that.
I like
That'd
that.
be great.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my answer. Take it or leave it, YouTube.
Oh, it is a good answer.
They'll take
and,
it.
and Twitch and YouTube, you give us your answers as well, please.
Deja Q.
Deja Q. Oh, it
No,
might be
I-
Deja Q. No, it's Q-less is the DS9 episode. We're
Yeah.
all wrong. Rob got us right. It's Deja Q where he loses
Yes.
Q powers.
I
Thank you,
thought
Rob.
Timeless
I
was a
love the
Voyager
puns.
episode. Isn't that the one where Harry Kim?
Timeless is the
Yeah.
one where
Goes
the,
back-
Harry Kim, it's like they stuck in snow and everybody died,
Yeah.
quote unquote.
Yeah.
Like every Voyager episode, every other
We're
one.
nerds. Yes.
I think people know if they're
You know
watching.
what other one I would want to drop in on? You know the one where O'Brien is in that prison camp for like 100 years, but it's only in his mind.
Oh my
I would
God.
like to just like fast forward like through 8 years of that, because we really just cut to like, year 5 or whatever. I'd love to just like drop in on like 3 months in or like a year and a half, and the times when it's not climactic, just to see what he does to pass the time as he's
Having-
slowly going insane.
Having deep, dark dreams of just sitting in the Enterprise D transporter room waiting for something to happen.
Exactly.
Well, he is the most important man in the galaxy, so.
Allegedly.
I would totally join his prison gang.
For me, it would be an episode that we just watched on our Discord with everybody, and that would be the DS9 episode, In a Pale Moonlight. And I would just
Oh my god.
I would follow Cisco around, like in the parts that like we didn't see, where he's really questioning the decisions of, is this okay what I'm doing, trying to get the Romulans in the war? Is this like, if anybody finds out about this, I'm gonna lose my Starfleet career? Struggling with that, the point that he knows that like he's really in the wrong. And then the part where he's like, I pretty much am complicit in the murder of a Romulan Senate, but no one's ever gonna know. So
So you want to watch him Ciscoing through it?
I do. I want to sit with him in his quarters, like when he's drinking a whole bottle of what looked like tequila, and just hashing it out with him and see like what was going through your head, what was going through your mind. How are you okay with this, even though you got what you wanted? I love that episode.
I feel
That's
like
a
I would
deep
go
Yeah, I went deep.
Voyager.
Sorry.
I was gonna say I would go complete opposite.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with something. I don't know if this is sort of inception of this, but I would do the Captain Proton episode from Voyager, which is
Oh my god.
yeah, it would be a holodeck in a holodeck, because that I like the slice of life moments in Star Trek where they're not like, it's not like a crazy crisis. Like when we see everybody partying on Discovery, like they're having just that moment together, and everybody's got solo cups in the future, which is great. And but I love Captain Proton and all the silly costumes and the black and white, and they got like the ray guns, and it's just a lot of moments of those characters and their friendships, and I think that would be a lot of fun. So that's what I would do.
I feel like I'd end up in a Lower Decks episode.
I was
because
just gonna
I
say that.
I'd go
that would be
absolutely
so
insane.
fun.
Like I would go absolutely insane with Mariner because we're the same person. But
Vindicta!
also,
Yeah, I was gonna say Crisis Point.
exactly, I'd go pure Vindicta. But if I had to choose like I guess a live action Trek, I would go Threshold, and I'd be a damn lizard baby.
Yes,
I'd be
lizard
one of those
babies!
lizards, and I would just sit there and be like, I am the offspring of Tom Paris. Oh god.
Oh my
and
God.
Janeway.
Did you
So
see
good.
that meme the other day where it was like Tom Paris and Janeway, and what did he call Janeway, like flappy baby?
Oh god, I don't want to
Catnip.
know.
Catnip.
Catnip. it was
Anyway,
bad.
that's my
Sorry.
answer. Hawker, do you have an idea?
Oh yeah,
I wanna-
absolutely. Yeah, there's only one episode I think I would go for, and that would be Measure of a Man, when Data is
Oh,
put on
so
trial,
good.
and that. Oh, so
That's like
you,
my
would,
favorite
you would
episode.
argue that we should turn Data into a race of slaves. I'm sure that's where you'd be like, no, Picard, you're wrong. I'm sitting on the other side.
Exactly.
I would love to see you
I-
stand up against Picard because it'd be like mirror images.
I would. I'd be
I-
like cry screaming. Be like, leave Data alone.
Hawk is like smiling Picard.
He is.
I just want to be the court stenographer there when Picard does his monologue and that. What is he? What is he?
Like,
I like
tap
when
it on
Riker
the
just
data
holds up his
pad.
hand.
Yeah,
Turns them off.
exactly.
Oh, it's such a good episode. Though.
I guess me. Am I the last
Yeah,
one? I'm
you,
the last one.
You and then I'll go to Twitch.
I was
yeah.
gonna say Crisis Point, but you said that already, Brittany. So I'm gonna pick a non-serious one. Is Booby Trap the episode where Geordi's girlfriend finds out that he has a holographic version of her?
Yes.
I would
That
just
sounds
want to
like
be
a-
there
yeah.
and watch it happen in real life because I'd just be like, no, why? I would love that.
I have, like,
Always
secondhand embarrassment
erase
just thinking
your
about that.
browser history.
It's
That's
true.
why
I
you're
do
not
love a good
supposed to
Geordi
copy
episode, though.
real people.
We have some good
Terrible.
answers on Twitch. Some of these I don't recognize. Like I know episodes, I just don't recognize the titles. So they might have to explain. Mag says I'd be the
Mag.
goddess of empathy. Is that an episode or
Yes,
yeah,
it is.
So you know,
Probably
yeah.
TOS,
Can you
right?
explain that one real quick?
That was the Barkley episode in that. Deanna Troy's character in the holodeck.
yeah.
I am the goddess.
Oh,
Oh,
Yeah, yeah,
see?
yeah. Okay.
Don't copy real people.
Again, always delete your browser history. Joe says I would go with Trials and Tribulations because yes, absolutely.
Yes. A good Dex.
Amazing. Mag corrected me. It was not catnip, it was catfish.
Catfish.
'Cause they look like catfish, yeah.
And then Spotted Draft says any two TOS episode so I can wear an insane pink and orange feathered dress.
Not wrong.
Sure.
And that is it for Twitch and YouTube.
Cool. So, all fun things aside, getting a little more serious now. So before we get to talking about your time on Discovery, which obviously is what we want to chat about, we wanted to give you some time to talk about some important work you've been doing in the diabetic community with Insulin for All.
Oh yeah, well, I sort of was chatting with a fan on Twitter who does like another podcast live stream, and he had seen that I put the kind of Insulin for All hashtag in my bio, and he made this kind of really amazing little graphic, and I was just sort of trying to think of like, what can I do with this? I'm really just like a guy, and I'm kind of a big loser and a big dork, but like I sort of, people are paying
Debatable.
attention to me. Not debatable, but people are paying attention to like my Twitter feed right now. So like, do with this, and so I reached out to an organization which I really really like called uh, uh, Type 1 International, which is essentially like a big conglomerate of different volunteer chapters that have like 37 chapters in the US and have some international chapters, Canada, UK, South Africa, and they really focus on advocacy, affordability, availability legislation. And they're, a really bootstrap organization, volunteer organization. So I just kind of reached out and was like, do you guys have any kind of like fundraising thing that I could just sort of direct people to? And they said, yeah, we have this like open fundraiser that we've been running for a while. And I looked and I got a little bit. And so I kind of just, part of it was also to increase visibility. There's a ton of visibility around the larger diabetes organizations like JDRF and the ADA and Beyond Type 1, which I think are have some issues with what their goals are, and I think and some conflict of interest with what their goals are. And I think Type 1, because they're not taking Type 1 International, because they're not taking pharmaceutical money, doesn't have those same conflicts of interest. But it also means that money is a lot harder to come by. Um, and so I just sort of reached out to this Trek community, and everybody really showed up. We raised like $4,500, which is a huge amount of money for an organization like that. And I just was really honored and touched by the way that people reached out, by the way that people who couldn't afford to donate, and obviously what is such a difficult time, were so gung-ho about retweeting, sharing, commenting, sharing their own stories, sharing the stories of their friends and family, and people who they know who have sort of dealt with this kind of stuff. And it was just a really really amazing event, and amazing kind of online community event for me, to really feel like sort of all the kind of time and investment I had put into being a Star Trek fan and identifying with the sort of Star Trek community was validated for me in that moment in a big way. And I'm looking forward to doing more. Some other fans have reached out about like 3D printing some actual like communicators
Oh, nice.
in like the image of in like the 3D image of this kind of image that was created, and they've kind of fabricated some of those and are sending those to me. So I don't really know what I'm doing or what I'm going to do with them, but hopefully I can have somebody give me money and do something
It'll
with
happen.
that. So I'll figure it out when they get here, and I'm looking at them like, oh crap, I've got like 40 of these com badges. I don't know what the hell I'm going to do
Well,
with
the
these
minute
things.
you get them, we'll order some definitely for the cause.
sure.
There
For
you
sure.
go.
A few of us
There
have
you
already
go.
donated.
You'll build a good community.
we'll donate again.
That's for
So.
sure.
We love a badge. Look at Julian. He's got 2 on his shoulder right now.
I do. I'm wearing
Perfect.
my Cerritos badge and our patron collective yearly gift badge.
Amazing. Yeah. So keep an eye out for that. And it's just been awesome. It's just been really, really awesome to just, reaffirm. I think anybody who's sort of like in the Trek fandom has these interactions or has these kind of like flybys where you're like, is this really like what a Trek fan is? Is that like, how could you get it so wrong? Like,
Oh yeah.
how could you, what are you doing? And it's really, it can be really disheartening. So to sort of have, Trek fandom be reaffirmed for me personally was amazing, and I look forward to more.
That's awesome. Real quick,
Speaking of which,
oh, sorry, Brittany, real quick. I wanted to read something
good.
from Spotted Giraffe, who's one of our members, because she was talking to me about this morning. She knew you were coming on, and she just wanted to make it known that she just wanted to say to you how much it means to us and everybody. My dad is also diabetic, so it means a lot to me too, that you do post about type 1 diabetes, because Star Trek is a big family, and she's glad that you've been able to kind of use your platform to put this topic under the spotlight. So she just wanted to make that known, and obviously for me too, because I have a diabetic in the family. I'm obviously at risk, so yeah.
That's awesome. Well, thank you for sharing that, and I'm happy to hear those kind words. So thank you. That means a lot.
So,
It's a very it's a very worthy cause. I run a small care home and that for people with mental health issues and that, and I look after 2 people with type 1 diabetes and that. And it's a daily struggle.
I bet it is. Yeah.
There's been some very scary moments, especially seeing somebody have a sugar crash. And looking up some statistics, it's a problem here in Canada too, and that's access to proper supplies and insulin and that for people without private health insurance. It costs on average $15,000 a year in that to adequately supply them.
Yeah, and even in places like Canada or the UK where there is a sort of infrastructure of nationalized health insurance, you kind of have to maintain a certain vigilance, because if you don't, it will be taken away from you. And I think just remind, a lot of people have interacted who aren't in the States. And I think it's important to sort of remind other people who, in Canada, where it's sort of on this cusp where it's better, but it's not perfect, or in the UK or Scotland where it's really good, but it's easily threatened, that you kind of have to maintain a sort of vigilance and a sort of awareness about it, so that you don't lose the things that you do have.
Definitely. And if people do still want to donate, do you have a link or a way of them to do so? Because as I'd like to say, you're either insulin or you're insul out.
It just keeps coming, man. She's
Here,
just
you
on
get
fire.
to hear one of these here, Noah.
Shut up, Wesley.
I'm fine with being the Wesley.
It's amazing that
it's honestly like, it's sort of like, I don't even know what we were talking about. I'm just so impressed now. You know what I mean? I'm like,
Thanks.
oh my god.
God, I wish
Like,
you guys could be in my head for 1 minute, because there's too much. I don't
like,
even voice them.
Are they like written down? Do they have like, is there just a computer screen? It's just lined with
Nope.
different
It's like the
rhyming words?
Matrix.
Wow.
It's just
No,
random
honestly.
things.
They're lucky
I'm
sometimes
impressed.
I put it in the outline for them just so they're prepared, but
You know that scene in Hangover when what's his name's he's doing like the counting cards parody from that one that was.
Oh yeah,
Yes,
that's
yes.
All
literally
the
me.
numbers are coming up. That's Brittany's brain with puns.
Amazing.
Yeah, I keep
Amazing.
all my puns in my satchel, my man satchel.
I needed puns once for something, and I sent her a text. And I was like, "Hey, Brittany, can you give me a pun for this?" And I expected like to hear from her in like 5-10 minutes. In like 30 seconds, there were like 6 versions. I was like,
Wasn't I asleep too? Because
yeah, I think you had. The text had woken you up, and she was like, "How about
Yeah,
this
I was like-
and this and this?" And I was like,
I just passed out.
Wow, incredible. Yeah, if you want to donate, you can kind of scour my Twitter, but I would say, keep an eye out for something upcoming, and hopefully
"Look for
that will
badges."
happen. Yes, I don't know. We'll see. I don't know. Something will happen. Just stay vigilant out there.
Awesome.
Did you happen to get to go to Banting House while you're?
I didn't. I didn't really even know it existed. Last year I was up here when I was working on the show and flying back and forth to the States. So I didn't even like really get it on my radar. And this year, by the time I got up here, it was already kind of closed for COVID.
yeah.
So hopefully in the future I'll get to go, because it's definitely on my radar and definitely something that I really, really want to check out.
Yeah. For those in the chat that aren't aware, that's it's known as the birthplace of insulin. So it's in London, Ontario, Canada.
Pretty cool. I did not know that. So,
Me either.
so segue time, because I couldn't think of anything too funny. I'm saving you. Don't worry.
Wait, you couldn't think of anything too funny? Who are you?
No, I was actually going to say, moving from insulin to rinsulin, we're going to talk about Discovery Season 3, but I thought it was so bad I didn't want to say it, but now I'm
No, it
pressured.
was. I think you were right on the first one.
Right? Yeah. Well, it's too late. You made me go back. Let's talk about Discovery Season 3. The true discovery was the Andorians we made along the way. Noah, it's been widely documented that you grew up a Trekkie and that your mom is also a huge Trekkie. So we're not going to bore you with having to explain that for the 85,000th time, because we've probably read all your interviews by now. But
I just won't shut up. That's the real problem. I'm so sorry. You know,
We'll
it's
let
just
it
like
happen.
blah, blah, blah. I tell the same story, and everyone's like, isn't there anything more interesting he can tell us?
It's kind of more like it's probably
No, it's
getting
okay.
boring for you as well, I would think. Maybe
You
not.
know,
I don't know.
I've been sitting on this whole thing for like a year. So like I have a year's worth of pent up energy that I'm just like constantly expending. So I'm more than happy to talk about all the boring stuff.
I do have one question for you before I get to the real question.
Mm-hmm.
So do you ever tell people that, like, hey, I'm Noah and or Ryn?
Well,
Like,
I haven't had the chance to do it because I wasn't when I was like meeting people or whatever. It was still secret, and then it came out during COVID, so I haven't seen anyone outside of like a cashier
Yeah.
in
And
Canada.
then you're like, do you happen to have CBS All Access?
Yeah, well, do you have Crave?
Crave,
Well,
Crave
true,
here.
you have Crave.
Crave.
Yeah, so I haven't had the chance yet. But even, you know, Brittany, if you just kind of move to the side, like
Oh, I will.
I don't really look like that person, so it's not like somebody's going to be like,
Are
I
you
know
sure?
you've
Like,
heard
I
something."
couldn't
I
tell.
think
I couldn't
Just
tell.
take a little bit of your hair and put it down the front
Yeah,
of your
right,
face.
like that.
If we gave
Yeah.
him just like a little bit here, you know, a little more.
Yeah, so I even think like when I'm eventually lucky enough to go to a Star Trek convention and there'll be like an event and you know I'll be, oh there's Mary, oh my god, and you know oh my it's Wilson and there's a tall guy over there, who is that, you know, because they won't know what I look like.
Oh, we'll be in line. Don't worry.
Thank you. Good. It'll be you guys, and then my mom going back in line for like the 20th
Aw,
time.
that's so nice.
Gonna have tokens.
Everybody's gonna walk by
Exactly.
and they're gonna be like, Ryn there, done that. Not us though.
How
So-
weird must that be? Because anyone who's had like a show premiere, like I know Stargirl from DC, that premiered, and they didn't get to have a big premiere party. Like it was all online. They didn't do the big interview junket thing. So it's just I can't even imagine you're in Star Trek and it's like, oh my god, and you're just we're glad you're on Zoom, but I'm like,
Well,
that's
you know, luckily it's season 3, so we had done the big premieres and season finales in person before, so that was good. The other thing is like because I wanted to do it until episode 6, it wasn't like I could like go on the lineup and people would be like,
Right.
oh well, we got to take his
Yeah.
picture. They'll be like, Mary's weird husband is here again, can somebody please ask him to leave, he was
Hey, I
specifically
knew you
not
first
invited.
as Mary's weird husband.
Yeah,
and I followed you
exactly.
anyway for being Mary's weird husband, and then you were on the show, and I was like, no way.
Noah way.
I know.
Noah way.
No way.
Very nice.
Hey.
But you know I at first I was bummed because I had really wanted to like fly back to California and watch a show with my parents or whatever, but then I was like actually like I felt very very lucky that I sort of got this really fun thing, this really special thing, this thing where I could like spend a lot of my day interacting with people and sharing fun things and like making other people's day a little bit better. So in this time it actually wound up being perfect and sort of like filling in, I don't know, you know, there's obviously everyone is in the same boat and like there's just so much missing from your life. So to have this thing sort of reinvigorate my day-to-day life has just actually been kind of amazing. So what I might have missed, you know, in meeting people face to face or doing an interview face to face, I've really like got back tenfold of just, you know, getting to like interact with people on Twitter and then be like, cool, that was fun, you know, like to get to do that for other people has just been really really awesome.
Yeah. How did it feel the first time that you like sat down in the makeup chair to become Ryn? Because we know you've been such a long time Trek fan, so to actually sit down and realize, wow, I'm about to become a Trek character, and on top of that, a Trek alien or a Trek species. How did that feel?
Yeah, it was so interesting because I didn't know what he was going to look like. You know what I mean? It wasn't, I didn't like see a picture or a test. Like the test was on me the first time I did it. And so it was this very strange experience of like getting the test done, like the physical
Did they do a
experience.
head cast of you?
They did do a head cast.
I've had the whole cast thing, so I know that experience.
The head cast, like I thought was going to be like the big event, you know, because everyone talks about like you're doing a head cast and it's so weird and it's this and that, you know. And I was like, wow, I did it. Like that was so weird. And then I sat down in the prosthetics chair and it was like, okay, like this will be about 6 hours and we're going to shoot paint into the back of your mouth. So like enjoy. And I was like, oh, that was like the easy part. The crazy part is now when they're like, you know, painting up my nose and like gluing plastic to my eyeballs, you know. So it was like, oh, this is it. And I feel like I had the experience where I was like, I finished the prosthetic and I looked in the mirror and I was like, oh, I need to like really quickly figure out who this character is, because like it's a different when you like are putting on makeup or putting on a costume and you're like, oh, this is like a sort of a heightened version of myself, or this is like an imagined version of myself in different circumstances. I looked in the mirror and I was like, I don't know who this guy is. You know what I mean? I don't know what his story is. Like I've read like 4 pages of the script, and also like the very early tests, like he had these braids in his hair and he had these big mutton chops, and like the painting wasn't like quite, you know, they had to like practice painting my face because the actual mold is just sort of like a blue rubber cast, and what gives it the sort of definition and like 3 dimensions and characters like hand painting and spray painting. So like they hadn't totally figured that out yet. So I was sort of looking in the mirror like, I don't know who this guy is, you know, like what do they want from him? Who is he supposed to be in the overall story? What's his personality supposed to be? So I think it was like this moment of like, I'm here, I did it. Like I'm definitely like on Star Trek now, but now I actually like, have to like do something. I don't just like get to like be like, it sort of was like I felt like it would be like, all right, I put the thing on.
Like you can't just be Morn.
Yeah, like I like put the thing on, and they took my picture and I show my mom the picture and it's like I did Star Trek. It's like, oh crap, like now I actually like have to do a good job acting or people are going to get really angry at me, including my wife. I need to like figure this out really fast.
So with the, I mean, you're kind of halfway there to my question, but when you're figuring out who you are as an Andorian, do you go back to Enterprise and, you know, Jeffrey Combs' version, and what is your version of the Andorian, and did that evolve from that?
Yeah, so it was sort of 2 things. I mean, the first thing I did before I did any of the makeup, when I knew it was going to be an Andorian, because I think even like early on, it was unclear, at least to me, if it was what species it was going to be. If it was going to be an Andorian, you know, in the very early audition sides, it might have been like even like they had mentioned Cardassians a lot. So I don't even know if they ever thought about that. But it was just not clear to me if it was an Andorian Orion. I think maybe some of the prosthetics guys like got me confused with Ian Lake, who played Tolor, and thought like I was going to be the Orion. So like, what are you talking about? You're going to be green. And I'm like, oh no, you know. So but once I sort of solidified the Andorian, or maybe even before then, when I was like, you know, pretty sure, I watched all of the Shran episodes on Enterprise and sort of really, it was like sort of figuring out the character was this 2-prong approach, or 3 prongs really. It was
2 antenna approach.
Yes, exactly.
Really, you Shran with it?
I ran away.
I want to know what the hell is going on.
I had to.
Good job,
Sorry.
Julian.
Eating me up inside.
And part of it was what Jeffrey Combs kind of created as Andorian, because even though they're so iconic, you know, there's actually like not a lot of canon out there on what Andorians are like and how they're different from Klingons or Romulans or whatever. It was also, you know, then just sort of synthesizing all that information to like what it was actually called for in the script, you know, like who this guy had to be based on like, you know, what was written on the page. And then also just trying to figure out how to like convey that story through this prosthetic. It's very thick, you know, it doesn't necessarily respond to sort of subtle facial movements. So figuring out a way to work with it as opposed to work against it so that, you know, whatever story I decided to tell would get conveyed on camera. You know, watching Jeffrey Combs on Enterprise, and having the script, I was sort of stuck for a little bit because I was like, you know, he's kind of created this race of these sort of like confident, brash, you know, front-footed, aggressive species, you know, and it's really fun and very unique, and he does this incredible job. And when you meet Ryn, it's sort of downtrodden and quiet and crushed almost. And I just like thought a lot about alien species or species in general in Star Trek. Like what are they about? Like what's the deal here? You know, what's a Star Trek species as opposed to like a Star Wars species? You know, it's not just, you know, I'm not trying to like start a battle, but whatever. You know, it's
No, pay to like both, damn it.
Yeah, exactly.
From
but
Borg
like
to
what?
Borg.
There you go. Like what sort of, what's the way in? And I was thinking a lot about, you know, each species sort of like represents an aspect of humanity, of like experience, of existence, you know, and each species sort of like presents something, and then they're covering something with that presentation. So like for Klingons, it's sort of like this violent bloodlust, you know, violence, and they're really covering a sense of like deep loyalty and honor and rule bound and like deep care. And even for humans, it's like, you know, Starfleet sort of presents this front of like justice and truth and doing what is right even when it's hard, but really that's sort of covering this sort of like greed and lust and animal baseness that like makes them very human. And so I sort of, you know, and I think that applies for everyone. Like for Vulcans, it's obviously crystal clear. And I sort
Cardassians,
of,
it's war crimes and being a simple tailor. Like, I got you, man.
exactly. I mean, that is like the one-to-one right there, you
Really
know?
is.
Well, actually, I mean, anyway, you know, and I thought about like, what is that for Andorians? You know, you have this presentation of this sort of like boastful, confident, front-footed, in your face, presentation, but over Shran's story, you sort of, as his like sort of trappings are stripped away and he loses more and more until he's like really almost desperate for help, you really see it's covering this sort of like deep sensitivity, this deep felt, you know, emotion, this deep feeling of care and love. And you know, what I wanted to do for Ryn was sort of, what if we meet this character where sort of Shran is ending, you know, before Archer and everyone steps in to kind of help him out, you know, where he has been stripped away of all of his bombast, all of his confidence, you know, he's sort of like has, you know, used all of that and stood up to this really, really powerful, you know, criminal. And it hasn't worked out, and he's kind of been crushed, and you're sort of meeting him at his lowest when he's got this new job that is, you know, the most humiliating, demeaning, isolating job on this, you know, work camp planet. And then for his story to kind of be this redemption arc where he's slowly building up his confidence in an Andorian way. He's slowly building up that bluster again, that front-footedness. You know, you see in episode 2 where he's like, I'm talking to the captain, but is very quickly shut down. You know, he doesn't quite have it yet. And I think that sort of culminates in him fighting in his sort of last words to stand up and like make his last stand, even though he knows it's going to cost him everything. And that last stand is like, you know, sort of saying like, I am myself again, and you can't take that away from me no matter what.
Oh my God. I don't
The
think
last
that was
Standorian.
amazing. And the saddest part to me is just like, I would have liked to have seen that character stick around and become part of the crew, and I'm sure we all would, but I think that's beautiful, and it's a fulfilling story. So
You know, a lot of people have said that too, and obviously, like, what actor wouldn't want their character to stick around longer, of course. And I find it very validating that people feel that way. You know, it really makes me feel like I made an impact. But I also think, you know, there is something really cool in Star Trek. So often we know so much about everything. We know so much about every character and every ship and every, you know, we know everything, and that's one of the reasons why we love it so much. So when a character like Garrick comes along who you don't know everything about, it's just like there is something so enticing about them. And I feel like because we don't know a lot about Ryn and because he didn't stick around to reveal it, there is something so enticing about that, which I feel very lucky to have got to play that, where it's not somebody who is just there for the story beat, you know, who's just there to like move the story along. And it's not somebody who's like, you know, here is my home and this is where I came from and this is everything about me and now I've died. It's like, oh, I just want to know more about that guy. And I think that's just a really cool, special little thing that I get to do in Star Trek, which is not very common.
Yeah.
Well, maybe if they do they do short treks again, maybe we could see like the Ryn book backstory short trek.
Yeah.
That would be cool.
I mean, absolutely. I won't say no to that for sure.
I want to talk about your death a little bit more because it does come to a very unfortunate end with just this absolutely cold-blooded murder by the hands of Osira. And then, you know, I think you mentioned it. We've kind of seen a little bit of, I don't want to say like a hardcore uproar, but a little bit of an uproar and a bit of a disapproval by fans. And I think us included, I don't think any of us are particularly happy with how your death was portrayed on screen. You know, I don't think though that we ever get to ask the actors enough how they felt about the way that their character death was handled. You know, not that anyone ever wants to get killed off in a show, right? But I mean, I guess, are you happy with how Ryn's arc went and played out at the end there?
Yeah, you know, his arc definitely, I think he had like a really full kind of cool redemption arc, sort of like I was saying before. In terms of like the actual death, you know, watching the whole episode together, I think, you know, if I can step out of myself for a little bit and really like see how that death sort of plays into larger story, you know, Osira's just come back from these failed negotiations where you're sort of like, well, is she right? You know, is she like right? And is Vance being an asshole in this? And then to see her just sort of like unload her fury onto somebody who is pissing her off really helps push the story along in a way that I find very helpful. Where, you know, that way when Burnham shoots her in the face, you're not like, maybe you shouldn't have done that. You know what I mean? I'm just like, yeah, like put her down. You know what I mean? She sort of meets a similar end to Ryn, which is just she has her last fight, but then she just gets blasted in the noggin and it's just down. And I found that very gratifying. And, you know, on the day I was like, oh, you know, like I his last words I feel like are very meaningful, and I like that it's not a big speech. It's just like, you know, you're nothing, you know, just a bully. And and I think there is something too about at least how I approached it in my own head, which is like Ryn knows more about Osira than anybody else there except for maybe Zara, you know, and he knows like by saying no that he is going to die, you know, and so he's sort of making this decision to just say like no, and you're nothing, you're just a bully. And like you can blow me away, you can torture me, but like you can never tear me down in the way that you have before because of the experience I've had with these people on this ship. And so in a way, I find that so much more meaningful than, you know, a slow like, oh, Book, you were my only friend, you know, like, you know, as fun as that would be to play, I do think there is something really, really powerful, at least for me, about looking your bully in the face, saying, you know, eat shit, I'm out of here. You know what I
Yes.
mean? So you know, of course, you know, everyone wants it to last forever, but nothing on, in the same way that like no one on Star Trek is ever dead, nothing on Star Trek lasts forever. And I'd rather go out and sort of, middle fingers blazing, just like standing strong, not sort of like we lost him on the medical bed,
Right.
Yeah.
Let's just go out, in a blaze of glory.
Yeah, that's awesome. Oh.
I would
It's
have
on
liked
you,
it if
bud.
he would have said eat shit. That would have been great. I'd be like, yes.
I should have pitched that to Jonathan. Now I'm regretting not saying, and you know what? Eat shit.
Yeah, what if he just says eat shit to him? What do you guys think about that?
I genuinely think he would have let me try that.
That
Or
would have been the
maybe-
best outtake.
Or maybe eat apples.
Yeah, eat apples.
Eat
Exactly.
apples that taste like shit.
How about them apples? What about you, Hawk?
So your character became a fan favorite pretty quickly. What was it like being received with that kind of positivity? And also, what was it like having those scenes with your acting out with your wife?
It was so amazing. I think like right after I finished shooting, I sort of was riding the high. I was like, oh my God, I did it. I was on Star Trek. I got to, act with all these people, and Jonathan Frakes directed me and he said, good job. Like I'm on top of the world. Then I thought, oh my God, like people are going to watch this. What if they don't like it? You know what I mean? What if they're like, I was like, am I an Andorian? Like, did I do the people can like, I started then like doing sort of like canon checks in my head. I'm like, is this Andorian enough? Was that Andorian enough? Maybe if they cut it this way, it will be Andorian in a good way, So I sort of was like sort of building up this kind of.
We're building the Andorian. The lore. And
Oh yes,
No.
thank you. Yeah.
I can't believe I had to explain it. That's
Mandalorian,
embarrassing.
no,
Boo.
I thought it was like a Mandalorian thing.
No.
Oh well, you know
I'm
what?
sad.
You knock out like 99 out of 100. It's okay. It's okay.
Okay, yeah.
Swing and a miss.
And
Mary would have
it's true. She would have, and she also would have been really angry at me for not laughing too. So
Okay.
fair. So anyway, I was really nervous about people just being like, "This sucks. You suck." That would have just really sucked, especially as a fan. It's one thing when you're like on a TV show or in a play, and some old person who's a subscriber at the theater is like, I didn't like the play. And it's like, well, I don't like you, whatever.
I didn't like your take on Ham.
Yeah. Like, I don't
Really?
care. I don't care what you
Words,
think,
words.
but like when it's something where you are invested as a fan, it's like, I actually do really care what people think, on mass, and so to kind of get the response that I did for just the small amount of screen time that I had, it wasn't insignificant, but it wasn't massive, it just meant the world to me, and it still means so much, because I really do still consider myself a fan, even though like I'm so deeply tied in with the show now. Obviously, like I don't read, I can hop on Mary's computer and read the scripts, but I don't, because I like watching the episodes week to week.
That's
I like being surprised, I like experiencing it as a fan. I didn't even read 313, the series finale, because I wanted to kind of be surprised by it and like see how it happened. And I've just been so glad that I've done it that way. So, just to feel like received in the way that I have been has just meant so much to me, because at the end of the day, it's like different from being on another thing or working on something else, because part of the experience is it's not just the acting, and it's not just like having your uncle watch it. It's like there is that thing of like wanting to interact with the fan base, like you've always dreamed of, it's like, oh, I've always wanted to answer that question. I've always wanted to like give my take on this. I've always wanted to, share behind the scenes photo. And so like getting to do that has been amazing. And getting to act with Mary was just awesome. We had acted together. The last time we acted together was about 5 years ago in school, when we were at school together. And it was wild to see like, it was her house. Like, she was so comfortable. I was like, oh my God, like, I am completely being outclassed, which I usually am, by her, of course. Like, she's always outclassing me and everybody. But I was like, oh, she's like legitimately running a couple of laps around me right now. I really need to pick up my game.
In the disco, running her laps.
Exactly. Yes, exactly. She was working on it. But it was clear, she had like 3+ years of experience, and it felt she was like just comfortable, and it was awesome to get to see that. But what was really funny about the first day of shooting we had together was the scene where I come in and I'm, asking for the captain, and she's like, and I was like, I'm going to come in so freaking hot. I'm going to, guns blazing.
Oh, this is
We're going to go at each other, screaming at each other, whatever. And I came in, I was like, hell yeah, that was awesome. And Jonathan comes over to me. He's like, hey, could you just like calm it down quite a bit? I just don't think that's the scene at all. And I was just crushed. I was just like, oh my God, I embarrassed the family.
Talk about a hot break.
I've humiliated myself. This is the worst thing that's ever happened to me. And I was just like, just hold it together for the rest of the day. Don't just like walk out into the tractor beam and get eviscerated or something. You know what I mean?
He just adjusts himself.
Exactly. Like, don't jump out the window into the depths of space. And Mary and I, at the end of the day, were walking back to the trailer, and I was sort of had my head hung, and I was like, well, like, how was your day? And she's like, it was terrible. And I was like, well, why? What do you mean? Like, what happened? And she was like, well, I was like gonna come into our scene like guns blazing, like 100% so hot, and I did it the first time, and Jonathan was like, Mary, you need to really cool down, like, that's way too hot. And so we had both independently been like prepared to have this amazing lovers quarrel, and Jonathan Frakes was like, guys, we need to know that Book is on the planet, like, not that you guys are married and like play acting.
He was like, this is too tense.
Yeah, Doug's uncomfortable right now. You guys need to calm down.
Oh, that's amazing.
That is totally amazing.
So like you said earlier, no one in Trek is really ever dead, and that's even more true for people in full makeup. Once you're part of the Star Trek family, there's always a chance that you can come back. You'd mentioned Jeffrey Combs earlier, and then there's more recently the amazing Kenneth Mitchell. Does Ryn's death pave the way for you to return to maybe Disco or Strange New Worlds, Picard, or even Lower Decks later down the line?
Gosh, I can only hope so. Of course, I'll be back. I'll do whatever the hell they want me to. Yeah, I do feel like, once you've sort of proved you can do prosthetics, it's like there is like an asset there, because it is definitely not something that everybody can do or act well in, but these things are so much about the winds of fate. They need this at this time, and he's busy doing that and not that. So, as much as I would love to come back at any time, I'm also like kind of aware that really it's just like, it was a stroke of good luck that I was there in the first place, so yes, I would love to be back. And if not, I'm more than happy with the experience that I did get to have.
Yeah. Our Twitch collective on are out there saying we'd love him on Lower Decks. We'd love him on Strange New Worlds. We need Noah on there. It's so awesome to see all the love out there.
It's so nice. I also like somebody, I feel like people have like, I rightly so, people want to see what the Ferengi are up to in the future. And people are like, you can come back as a Ferengi. And I'm like, I would be 2 Ferengi stacked on top of each other.
You'd be the tallest Ferengi.
It's like some transporter accident gone wrong.
Ferengi Prime.
Never go full Ferengi.
We actually, to tie into Eric's question, had a question from one of our collective members, Rob. He asked, if you could pick any character, any alien to come back as, you've obviously already played an Andorian, what would that be for you?
I have 2 answers to that. I'm I love, as an actor, I love Cardassians, like the sort of like, this sort of sly humor that they have, which is so different than the sort of dry, humorless green of a Romulan. I think like Garrick is one of my favorite characters
Oh yeah.
because you
Yeah.
just are like so drawn in by them. But I really think like all of those Cardassians on DS9, they're just like is a level of complexity and malevolence that I feel like as an actor I would really, really enjoy playing. So, even though it seems like the Cardassians are Federation members in this future, I still think that just getting to sort of re-tackle them would be so much fun. But I also think, getting to play a new species, like having that taste of like creating a little bit of canon, even though in my own little small corner, it's just like so attractive, to see how Doug has just like invented canon for Kelpians, his little arm swinging stuff,
Oh,
his,
I love him.
so much of what a Kelpian is like personality, attitude, identity is based around what Doug has brought to the table as an actor. And the writers sort of saying, like, well, Doug is making these kind of choices. How can we like sort of like extend those choices out into like a species,
Extend
like
them out like a ganglia.
exactly. How can they basal ganglia out to all the way out to Kaminar? So, getting the chance to create canon for a new species would just be kind of it's just so tantalizing that it would just be a lot of fun.
Mhm.
I agree. And what's more tantalizing to me is as a DM and a D&D player, I have to say I absolutely enjoy Anthony's updates on the Disco Does D&D crew, like their adventures every week. And obviously, like a lot of actors discover D&D and TTRPGs if they didn't already play them as kids. Sometimes they discover them after they've been acting for a while. So, and they find they really enjoy the role play aspect. So I was wondering, how's it been being able not only to act alongside these people like your wife and your colleagues at work, but
Mhm.
also now that it's not on screen, being able to play via tabletop, like how has that been? It's
Yeah,
gotta be amazing.
it's so great. It's so funny you say that because like a really good actor friend of mine was introduced by the game from an actor friend of his on tour, and he introduced it to me, and I'm playing in two games with two other actor friends. Like I think, I think like actors are sort of immediately obsessed with this game because so often we're in a
Mhm.
situation where we know this character better than anybody else. We know it better than anybody else, and we'll get handed a piece of writing and you're just like, oh, they wouldn't do
Yeah, and you're
that,
like, this isn't them.
exactly.
Yeah.
And I feel like tabletop RPGs, D&D gives you the opportunity to finally really claim like what they would do,
Mhm.
and so all these actors have such a good time being like, I finally get to do what my character would do,
Yes.
not what like the production needs to happen so that 3 episodes from now the story makes sense, or because they like, you know, thought it was funny, but here's what's actually funny, So
Yeah.
there is something that actors, I think, have really, really take to the game beyond the role play stuff, because in a way it's like, actors are the only people who actually get to like do the role play stuff. So it's like,
Exactly.
it's funny that they're so into it, because I don't think it's the acting part that really, really attracts them, because it's like, well, we kind of do that already and it can really be a pain in the ass. So like, I want to leave that at work. I think it's like the storytelling, the ownership of the story that really, really draws them in. But it's been so great to get to play with these people. Our game is Emily Coots, Ian, Alexander Blue DeBario, Anthony Rapp,
All my faves.
Mary Wiseman, and now Anthony's fiance Ken has joined us. It's been great for a couple of reasons. First off, like, I had met Blue in person one time at like a Halloween party in 2019. Very briefly. I didn't really know what their role on the show was at that point. I don't think they really knew what their role on the show was. None of their episodes have come out. I didn't do any scenes with them, so like, I didn't know them, and I've still to this day haven't met Ian in person
Oh
yet.
wow.
Because of
I
the
haven't met
pandemic.
Ian in person either, so it's okay.
I haven't met
I
any
talk
of
to
you
Ian
people
all
in
the
person.
time. I talk to Ian like all the time, and I still
Well,
haven't met them in person.
but
Yeah.
it's just such a great way to get to know who people are outside of work, even with somebody like Anthony, who's at our wedding, who I've known for 5 years now. It's just great to have another point of connection. And I also think for anyone who plays D&D, it just sort of becomes a sort of like backdoor therapy session where like
Yes.
your worst or your id just like falls right out of you onto the table, and you're like, oh no, I'm supposed to keep that hidden. Like people
Yeah,
aren't
you're
supposed
like,
to see
oh
that,
no,
you know.
I
So it's
revealed
been
my inner wants and desires.
exactly. It's like, oh man, that is not good. I really need to get that looked at. So it's just been great to like get to know kind of really who the people are in another way. And it's just been so much fun, and just a great way to get to know everybody better, and a great way to just like stay connected, because we are not hanging out outside of work. We're not getting together. People are on set and then they go home to their separate houses. It's not like we're in a pod or a bubble or anything like that. So it's been a really, really great way to kind of stay connected with people, because I think one of the great things about this cast is they're just so amazing. And the get together or the game nights we did were just such like a joy and such a luxury that we all got to participate in. And everyone is so kind and so giving and so caring that you weren't ever coming to one of these parties like being like, oh my god, here's so and so is going to be here again. You really look forward to it. And so not having that is such a disappointment, as I'm sure everybody knows. But it's especially acute when you've moved to another country, and you just, for people who don't have partners, or whose partners are working all day doing something else, it's just you go to set and then you just go home. So having another little outlet has been really, really special and amazing. And hopefully, Anthony and I and others have been sort of pushing a charity event live stream forward. So
Yes.
keep an eye out for that. Hopefully that will come. It's still in development, but I'm really hoping for that, and for the chance to kind of get to share it with everybody.
That
Sounds
sounds
great to me.
awesome.
Yep.
So I don't think there's any more questions in the chat, or I don't know if you have time to go back and answer any if we missed any.
There's one question, and it's kind of taken it down to a little bit of a darker place, talking about Ryn. If you want to answer it real quick, no, it's completely up to you. One of our patron members, Mag, she was asking about, unfortunately Ryn's antenna getting cut off in the we didn't see it happen, but the fact that they were, I mean, what do you think the symbolism is that for an Andorian, and how that was for the character?
Yeah, it was interesting because I think a lot of people are like, oh, is it going to get them back or whatever? And I just think story-wise, it's just like you have to, there's just so much time to spend getting them back, and then for him to get killed again, I think it would have just felt really just kind of gross and crummy. I also think a lot of people were curious, like why weren't they regenerating? Why wasn't there a chance to regenerate them? And something we had talked about on set, and something that I think is so different from what happened with Shran and Archer, is like Archer did this very clean cut, and then they had the dermal regeneration, and obviously it's like over 1,000 years ago or whatever. The reason, who knows how long that those have been there, they've been like that. And one of the great little Easter eggs we also learn later on is like, which of course there's information about it in Enterprise about sort of their connection to balance and hearing, and when Aurelio is talking about hearing the four overtones in the opera, and like sort of what you lose when you lose those antenna. It's like you lose sort of the almost like the finer parts of life, and you just are sort of reduced to like your lowest self. You lose those things. And I think in my mind, and sort of what we talked about on set, and maybe in early versions of the script that wind up getting cut, it's like the reason they're not going back, the reason why they're sort of so brutal, is really speaking to the person that Osira is. I think it's less almost to do with Ryn and more to do with the kind of monster that Osira is, that she's smart enough to know how to torture somebody so that it really is humiliating, and it really takes something, valuable and precious, and, something that makes you away from you, and also do it in a way that they're not just going to pop right back. And it's not easy to go into, a programmable matter tanning bed and they'll pop right on, she's smarter than that. She's better than that. So I think as much as it sort of speaks to Ryn and, his sort of journey, I think in a way he's sort of, when we meet him, he's like, this is just who I am now. I'll never have this part of me back. I'll make this new friend book, but I don't know. We'll see what happens. I'll probably get blown up, whatever. And this is who I am, and I think a lot of it is indicating the kind of person that Osyraa is.
It feels more real too, I think, because we see these characters who, might have been injured, or, this world, even though it's the future, not everything is fixable. And I think that makes the world feel more real too, because if you could just fix everything, or everyone comes back to life, that sort of thing, you lose the sort of, it loses its meaning, I think, when that happens. So
you lose some of the stakes, and you lose some of the tension as well.
Yeah, exactly.
This kind of came up later on with Aurelio, and him saying, like, back where you came from, tech and medicine were plentiful, and that not in this world though.
Exactly. Yeah, it's a real luxury to kind of get the care that might have been needed. And I think it's also it's difficult to kind of keep up with the timeline, but it's all sort of happening so quickly that there's just not really time to kind of sit down. And I don't even know if Ryn would want to address it. He's probably not feeling great about it,
That's something about Trek they do. They'll let like handicaps continue rather than just solve them with their magical Trek technology, which I think is sometimes to show that, like, just because somebody has a disability doesn't mean that they don't get to live a life, So I think that might have been part of it.
Totally.
Coolio. So Noah, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to come on our pod and obviously spend time with us and our collective who are watching live on Twitch. Do you have, I know NDAs are a thing, obviously, so you don't have to tell us, but do you have any upcoming projects that you're able to share with us, as well as where people can go to find you on Subspace?
Yeah, I think just keep an eye out on my Twitter and _A_K for information about diabetes fundraiser, hopefully coming up in the next few months, and for this D&D charity stream. I think those are the sort of two big things that I'm working on at the moment. And who knows, Brittany, maybe one of your minis might show up in it.
Ooh, he did the drop. Yeah, I didn't want to tell anybody.
You don't have to tell anybody. I'll just leave that as a mystery.
Okay.
There you go. I like that.
A word with drops. But yeah, once you guys get whatever, then you can do whatever you'd like with that.
Mystery.
I'll stay vague. Mystery. Thanks for beaming into our podcast today. If you want to keep the hailing frequencies open, you can subscribe on Apple and Google Podcasts, YouTube, and Spotify. Like what you hear? Put in a good word with Starfleet and leave us a 5-star review.